Ever thought a bird could wage a war? What if I told you that once upon a time Australia found itself at war with emus? Yes, you heard it right. The Great Emu War, as it's now known, was an unforeseen and rather peculiar conflict that took place in the sandy expanses of Western Australia during the early 1930s. This wasn't the usual war story of heroes and villains, of man against man. No, this was man against bird. But these emus, these towering, flightless birds, they weren't the aggressors. They were merely victims of circumstance, forced into a confrontation due to the ravages of their environment. What drove these peaceful birds to such an extent? What made them the unintended foes of the Australian farmers? Why were the bullets flying not across a battlefield but across the sun-baked plains of Western Australia? So, how did it come to this? How did a country find itself at odds with a flightless bird? To understand this, we need to rewind back to the Great Depression. Picture Australia in the early 1930s. The country was in the grip of one of the harshest economic downturns in history. Farmers, the lifeblood of the nation, were dealt a double blow. The depression had wrung them dry financially, and now a severe drought was squeezing them even further. As if this wasn't enough, an unexpected adversary entered the scene. Emus, large, flightless birds native to Australia, began to invade the farmlands. Driven by hunger and thirst, these feathered invaders descended upon the crops, causing extensive damage. The farmers watched in despair as their last hopes of survival were decimated, not by market forces or weather, but by a marauding army of emus. Pushed to their limits, the farmers sought help, and the government responded in a way no one expected. This was the beginning of a conflict so unusual it would come to be known as the Emu War. Enter the military. Yes, you heard it right, the military. With the emu population spiraling out of control, the Australian government decided to deploy its armed forces in a bid to rein in the feathered mayhem. It seemed like a simple enough task, right? A bunch of soldiers, armed to the teeth against a horde of flightless birds, but the reality, oh dear viewers, was far from it. You see, emus are not your average birds. They're fast, agile, and their movements utterly unpredictable. The soldiers, trained for traditional warfare, were caught off guard by the guerrilla tactics of their feathered foes. Bullets flew left, right, and center, but the emus, they just kept coming, dodging and weaving with a speed that left the military men bewildered. The first battle was a spectacle, a comedy of errors that played out under the harsh Australian sun. The soldiers, their faces red not just from the heat, but also from the sheer embarrassment of being outwitted by birds, and the public, well, they were having a field day. The media ran wild with reports of the Great Emu War, and the people, they couldn't get enough of it. The spectacle of their mighty military, brought to its knees by a bunch of birds, was too good to resist. Despite their best efforts, victory eluded the humans. The emu onslaught continued. After weeks of combat, the war ended, but who really won? The Emu War, as it's now known, came to a close after several weeks of an unconventional battle. The military operation ended with around 1,000 emus killed. However, this number barely made a dent in the estimated population of 50,000 emus terrorizing the farmlands. Yet, the end of the war was not the end of the emu problem. The feathered foes continued their rampage, leading to a public outcry. Australia found itself in the crosshairs of international ridicule. The Emu War made headlines across the globe, with many questioning the wisdom behind such an operation. But the Australian government didn't throw in the towel. Instead, they opted for a more traditional approach to handle the overpopulation. The government introduced a bounty system offering rewards for each emu killed. This strategy proved to be more effective, with 10,000 emus killed in the first 6 months. Despite the ridicule and backlash, the Emu War highlighted a significant issue. It underscored the challenges faced by farmers and the havoc wreaked by these large, flightless birds. It brought attention to the need for effective wildlife management strategies, especially in areas where human and animal populations intersect. So, in the end, the Emu War serves as a stark reminder of the unexpected challenges nature can throw at us. Odd as it might sound, it's a war we should never forget.